Okay, so we're going to start with Leaving Cert Ordinary Level Maths, and this is chapter 1 of Algebra. There's obviously a lot of chapters with Algebra, and this is the most basic stuff. So it might be a little bit too basic in some parts, or you might find it challenging in some parts, but either way, that's fine because it is really important to know all the basics because it pops up all over the ordinary level course. And again, like some of this stuff will be a little bit more challenging than others, and that's fine also. So first thing we're going to look at is this idea of an expression. Now, an expression looks like many terms put together. So something like 3x plus 4y plus 7, okay? So each of these would be terms, and many of these put together creates an expression. Now, just to keep in mind, for an expression, you're only ever simplifying. You are not solving because there's no equal sign. Okay, so this is not an equation, it's an expression. There's no equal sign here. So you're only simplifying when you see expressions. So just to keep an eye out for the language here, when you see simplify, you know it's only ever an expression. Okay. If we look at each of these terms, so for example, 3x, okay, 3x altogether is known as a term, okay? The 3 in this term is known as the coefficient. So the number that comes before the letter is called the coefficient, and the letter in algebra is known as the variable, okay? Variable because it varies, it can change. This number on its own, okay, so when we have a number on its own, it's called a constant because it doesn't change its value. So the constant is always the same. It's not able to change its value here. Okay, so all of these put together create an expression. Each of them are called terms, and we have our coefficient, which is the number in front of the letter. The letter is known as the variable. And then keep in mind, when we have a number on its own with no variable, that's called our constant. Okay, so that's really, really important to understand that language. Now, BIDMAS, you would have seen this before. Could have been BIDMAS, BIMDAS, BEMDAS, all different kind of variations of it. But really what's important to remember here is this is your order of operations. So this is telling you what order to actually answer a question in. Okay, now I'm just throwing this in here because it might pop up in different parts of the chapter. But really this is more number than algebra, but it does feature in algebra. So the B is our brackets. So if we have brackets in a question, we have to do them first. The I is indices, okay, which is also our powers, but also our square roots. So indices and roots have to be done next. D is division. M is multiplication. A is addition. And S is subtraction. Now, what's really important here is division, multiplication are written on the same line, and addition and subtraction are written on the same line. Because if we have division and multiplication, we actually just work from left to right, okay? So we just work from left to right if we've division and multiplication on the same line, and the same goes for addition and subtraction. So if we have both of them on the same line, we just work from left to right. It don't take preference over each other. So if we look at this example here, first thing I can see is there's something we can work out inside the brackets. So I'm going to rewrite this as 64 divided by 4 multiplied by 3 plus 5 is 8, and we've minus 2. So we've our brackets done there. Next thing, we have a square root. Okay, so the next thing we have to look at is our square root, and the square root of 64. So what number multiplied by itself gives 64? So we know this is 8 divided by 4 multiplied by 8 and minus 2. Now here we have division and multiplication. So because we said these are on the same line, it means we just work from left to right in order that we see them. So I can see the division is first here. So 8 divided by 4 gives me 2. And we're left with multiplied by 8 minus 2. Next, we have our multiplication. So we've 2 times 8 gives 16 minus 2. And the last part is 16 minus 2 is equal to 14. And that's our final answer there. Okay, so really important. You won't see a whole lot of it, but it will kind of come up in different parts of different questions. So the next part we're going to look at here. So substitution is the first part of our algebra chapter. And substitution means to replace. So if you think of a football match, if you're a substitute, you are replacing somebody. So from here, we're going to be given different values for different variables. And when we're given an expression, we're going to replace the variables with the values we were given. Okay, so the first example we have here is x equals 2, y equals 1, and z equals minus 5. So it says find the value of 3x plus 4y. Now, keep in mind that 3x means 3 times x. So when we're using times, we have to replace these values using brackets. So this is 3 times x plus 4 times y. So that's really important. Some people forget to use the brackets and they create like a new number like 32, which makes no sense here. So we've 3, and instead of x, we have 2. And instead of y, so 4 times y is 4 times 1. So 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 1 is 4. So our answer here is 6 plus 4 is 10. Okay, next example, we've minus 6. So minus 6, and in brackets we've x, so minus 6 times 2. Plus 2 times y is 2 times 1. Minus 4 times z is minus 4 times minus 5. Now we always have to be careful of our signs here, and I'm saying that just because we've our minus and minus coming together. So minus 6 times 2, so minus multiplied by a plus is minus. 6 times 2 gives us 12. Plus 2 times 1 is 2 times 1 is 2. And here we've minus by a minus, which gives us plus. So 4 times 5 is 20. So minus 12 plus 2. Now if you're thinking on your number line, you have minus 12 here. If you are adding 2, you are going towards the right. Adding is towards the right. So if we have our 0 here, okay, and our plus 1 here, that means minus 12 plus 2 is actually going to bring us to minus 10. Okay, so minus 12 plus 2 brings us to minus 10, and minus 10 plus 20, so minus 10, if we did minus 10 plus 10, it will bring us to plus 0, and then 0 plus another 10 would bring us to positive 10. So we need to be careful there with our adding and subtracting when we have our negative numbers, and the same with our multiplication. Okay, so when we are on our adding and subtracting, we are using our number line. Okay, so if we're on 0 and we're adding, we're going to the right. Okay, so this is always where we're adding, and if we're subtracting, we're going to the left. Okay, but when we're multiplying, we have our like signs give us plus, and when we're multiplying or dividing unlike signs, it gives us a negative. So these were like signs, same signs, and we end up with minus by a minus gave us plus, and unlike signs, so a minus multiplied by a plus, minus by plus gave us minus. Okay, so that's really important, and to be honest, that's where we probably see a huge amount of our mistakes in number and algebra. Okay, so we need to be careful of that. So another example here, A equals 4, B equals minus 2, C equals 6. So A multiplied by B multiplied by C we're going to put each of these in brackets. So we've 4 multiplied by minus 2 multiplied by 6. So start by just multiplying these two together. So plus 4 multiplied by minus 2. So plus by minus gives me minus. 4 by 2 gives me 8. And we now have to multiply that by 6. Minus 8 multiplied by plus 6. So minus multiplied by a plus is minus. And 6 eighths is 48. So that's your final answer there. Part 2, we've AB plus BC. So it's A multiplied by B plus B multiplied by C. So we've A is 4, B is minus 2, and B again here is minus 2, and C is 6. So 4 multiplied by minus 2, again we've plus by a minus is minus. 4 by 2 is 8. We've a plus here. Okay, and then minus 2 by 6. So minus by a plus is minus, and 2 by 6 is 12. Now when we have this scenario here in the middle, we've a plus multiplied by a minus. So this actually changes to minus 8 plus by a minus. So they're unlike signs. This becomes minus 12. So plus by minus is 12. Plus by minus is minus, and we've minus 12. And now we've no multiplication here. So keep in mind, brackets means multiplication. So if we've no brackets here, that means we've no multiplication. So this is on our number line. So we're going back up to our number line here and say we have minus 8, which would be here, and we're going back another 12 steps. So if we've minus 8 and we're going back another 12 steps, we end up on minus 20. Now, if you're allowed to use calculators, I would say do. I'm not sure if you're allowed to use calculators. In the Leaving Cert, you are allowed to use calculators. But if you are allowed to use calculators, I definitely would at this point, and just to verify all of your answers. It'd be much quicker anyway, but just to check up all your answers. So the last question we're going to do here on substitution, we've a squared times b squared times c squared. So we've brackets to be squared for each part. A again was 4 squared, b was minus 2 squared, and c was 6 squared. So we're going to do each part and keep it in a bracket. 4 squared is 4 multiplied by 4. Remember, squared is multiplied by itself. Okay, so 4 squared will be 4 by 4, which gives us 16. Minus 2 squared, so minus by a minus gives us plus. So minus 2 multiplied by minus 2 is plus 4. And then here we have 6 squared, which gives us 36. We don't need to worry about our signs here. So first of all, we have 16 multiplied by 4. So 4 times 10 is 40. 4 times 6 is 24. 40 plus 24 is 64. Multiplied by 36. Stupidly, I don't have a calculator. So 6 fours is 24, 6 sixes is 36, plus 2 is 38, 0, 3 fours are 12, 3 sixes are 18, plus 1 is 19, 4 plus 0 is 4, 8 plus 2 is 10, 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 3 is 13, so 2, 3, 0, 4. Now, again, stupid of me not to have a calculator here, but you would just throw that into the calculator, and actually you would just put all of those 3 into the calculator and it would give you your answer of 2304. Okay, so that's our substitution. Gonna look now at adding and subtracting terms. So I've 2 keywords here, simplify and like terms. So when we are adding and subtracting, we can only add and subtract like terms. And what we mean by like terms is that you can only add and subtract if they have the same variable, which means the same letter. okay? And the easiest way to look at this is to look at some examples. So, first of all, we've 2b plus 5b plus 4b. Now, I've underlined each of those terms because they all have the same variable. So all we have to do is actually add the number and you keep the variable. Now, keep in mind here, we are not changing the power of any variables. Okay, that's later on when we come to multiplication, but the power of the variable stays the same here. So 2 plus 5 is 7 and 7 plus 4 is 11. So our answer here is just 11b. Okay, here we have a plus 5a minus 10a. Now just keep in mind when we see a here, a is the same as 1a. X is the same as 1x. So what we have here is 1a plus 5a, which gives me 6a minus 10a. Now we're thinking of our number line again. So if we're on plus 6 and we minus 10a, we end up on minus 4a. Okay, and if you wanted, you could put just 6 minus 10 into your calculator. It would give you minus 4, and you just remember to put the a at the end here. Now moving on, we have E terms and we have F terms. Now I've marked them with different symbols underneath. So I've just put a line under the E terms and I've put a little star under the F terms. We cannot end up with just one term put together here because they are different variables. So we can only add the E terms and then the F terms. So 4e minus 3e is 1e. Okay, so that's just the e terms done first. And now we have to look at the f terms. So remember, f is the same as 1f. So if we're on minus 6f, okay, so this is minus 6f, and we're going to add 1f, we end up on minus 5f. Okay, so minus 6f plus 1f is minus 5f. So our answer here is 1e minus 5f, or just e minus 5f. Either answer is fine here. Okay. Next one here, we've different terms again, but they're all mixed around, so you need to be really careful here. I have an a term here and an a term here, a b term here and a b term here, and then I have a constant here and a constant here. So we can only add or subtract the a terms, then the b terms, then the constants. So 2a plus 5a is 7a. 2b minus 7b. So again, we're talking about being on plus 2b minus 7b is minus 5b. And again, if you wanted to check that on your calculator, you just put in 2 minus 7, which is minus 5, and just remember to put the b in afterwards. And then minus 2 minus 5. So if we're on minus 2 on our number line, and we minus another 5, so we're going towards the left, we end up on minus 2 minus 5, which gives us minus 7. So our answer here is 7a minus 5b minus 7. Okay, our next question, we have x squared term, x squared term, x term, and x term, and then our constants together. So 5x squared minus 1x squared is going to give me 4x squared. Minus 5x plus 2x. So we're from minus 5x and we add 2x, we are on minus 3x on our number line. Okay, so just thinking about that there, minus 5x minus 4x minus 3x minus 2x. We've gone from minus 5x plus 2x. Plus 2x means we go to the right and we end up on minus 3x. And then we've plus 1 minus x. So again, on our number line, if we're on plus 1 and we minus 6, sorry, I think I said minus x there. So plus 1 minus 6 is minus 5. So you're on plus 1 and you count back 6, you end up on minus 5. Okay, and the last part of adding and subtracting terms, we have minus p squared, which is the same as minus 1p squared, minus 3p squared, minus 3p, minus 2p, and plus 1 minus 4. Okay, so minus 1p squared minus 3p squared. So if we're on minus 1 and we minus 3, we end up on minus 4p squared. Minus 3p minus 2p. So again, on our number line, we're on minus 3 and we minus another 2. We end up on minus 5p. And then we've 1 minus 4. So plus 1 minus 4 is minus 3. Okay. So again, some of them more challenging than others. Need to be really careful that we're talking about our number line here. So adding and subtracting means we're always talking about our number line. So we've our 0, we've our positive numbers to the right, we've our negative numbers to the left. If we're adding, we always move to the right. Okay. And if we're subtracting, we always move to the left. Okay, again, calculator can help you there. Okay, so let's move on to some multiplication. Different stages of multiplication here. So this is multiplication part 1. Okay, and it's really important to look at the variables here, the letters here. So if you remember in indices, okay, which we will go back over again, indices is when we have our powers, but when we have the same base and we've two different powers, when we're multiplying, this means multiplication here, when we're multiplying, we end up adding the powers. Okay, so when we're multiplying two terms, we always look at the sign multiplied by the sign first, the coefficient multiplied by the coefficient, which is the number, and then the variable multiplied by the variable, which is the letter. Okay, so let's start by doing some examples, and obviously we'll be building towards the more challenging ones. So 3a multiplied by b is the same as 3a multiplied by 1b. So 3 multiplied by 1 is 3, and a multiplied by b is just ab. So keep in mind here, the variables were not the same. So we weren't able to do anything with the powers here because the variables were different. So we just put the two variables together and your answer is 3ab. Here what we're looking at is having the same variable. Now, when we have a on its own, that is the same as a to the power of 1. When we've x on its own, it's the same as x to the power of 1. Y on its own is the same as y to the power of 1. Okay, so here we have our number by our number. So 2 multiplied by 5 gives me 10. And we've a to the power of 1 times a to the power of 1. And if we use our rule of indices, a to the power of p times a to the power of q was a to the power of p plus q. So this becomes a to the power of 1 plus 1, which we don't need to always write. I'm just showing you here. So we've 10a squared. Okay. Same here, we've x squared times x cubed. So x to the power of 2 plus 3, which is x to the power of 5. Again, you don't need to write this part. I'm just showing you that we're adding the powers. Now introducing signs. So we've minus multiplied by a plus. So minus multiplied by a plus is different signs. So when we've different signs, we get a negative, or unlike signs give us a negative. So minus by a plus gives us minus. We've a 1 here multiplied by a 2. 1 times 2 is 2. And then we've our y, which is the same variable. So y squared, so 2, and y cubed. So we're adding the 2 plus 3. So our answer is minus 2y, and 2 plus 3 is 5. Next question, we've 4xy. So this is the same as 4. We've x to the power of 1 and y to the power of 1. we've a 1 here in front of that x. Okay, so this xy squared is like 1xy squared. The x here has a power of 1 and the y squared. So 4 times 1 gives us 4. X to the power of 1 times x to the power of 1 is x to the power of 1 plus 1. And y to the power of 1 multiplied by y to the power of 2 is y to the power of 1 plus 2. So we've 4. X, 1 plus 1 is 2. And y is 1 plus 2, which gives us 3. Now, I'm not going to continue writing those powers being added. You don't need to write that. You're able to just do that part in your head and just write the answers. So this one here, we have a times minus a times minus a. Now, first thing we have is that like 1a times minus 1a times minus 1a. And remember, with each of those powers of a, we have to the power of 1. So we've 1 times minus 1 is minus 1. And then minus 1 times minus 1, minus by minus is plus, and 1 by 1 is 1. A to the power of 1 times a to the power of 1 times a to the power of 1 is a to the power of 3. So your answer here is just 1a cubed, or 1a to the power of 3, and just a to the power of 3. Either of those answers is fine. So next question, we've minus 3y, okay, and I'm just going to put a power of 1 there beside the y, times 3x squared, or 3x to the power of 2, times y squared, or y to the power of 2. Now, first thing I'm going to look at here is my signs. So we've minus by a plus is minus, and minus by a plus is minus. So my sign here in the answer is going to be negative. I'm just going to put a 1 here in front of the y squared. The number by the number by the number, or the coefficient by the coefficient by the coefficient, is 3 by 3 is 9, and 9 by 1 is 9. We've no x squared term on either of these, okay, or no x term, I should say. So we're just going to write the x squared here in the answer, okay, because it's not going to change. And then for the y's, we're going to multiply the y to the power of 1 by y to the power of 2. So 1 plus 2 gives us 3. So we've y cubed. Okay, so minus 3 by 3 is minus 9. Minus 9 by 1 is just minus 9. The x squared is next because x is before y in the alphabet, and the x squared is not being multiplied by another x term, so it just stays as x squared. And then the y to the power of 1 times y to the power of 2 becomes y to the power of 3. Okay. And the last question obviously is the most challenging one. So we've multiplication in each part, and then we've a subtraction and an addition. So we're going to start by just multiplying each of the terms. So 4p multiplied by 2q, 4 by 2 is 8, and p by q is just pq. Okay, and we can't change any of the powers or anything here because the variables are different. So it's just p by q, which is pq. Here we have a minus sign in between. 2p multiplied by q. So 2p by q is 2pq. Okay, because this is a 1, 2 by 1 is 2, p by q is pq. And we have a plus here in between. 4 by q is 4q, and 4q by p is 4qp. And they just all go together, okay, because they're being multiplied and none of the variables are the same. Now, just to keep in mind here, we have a PQ and a PQ, so they're the same variable. But if we have a 4QP, the order of the variable doesn't actually matter. Okay, so the order of the variable doesn't actually matter. So QP is the same as PQ, or XY is the same as YX. The order doesn't matter, but we just always, I suppose we always tend to like to write them in alphabetical order. So I'm going to rewrite this as 8PQ minus 2PQ, and I'm going to rewrite this as plus 4PQ. So what we have here is 8PQ minus 2PQ. 8 minus 2 is 6PQ plus 4PQ, and 6 plus 4 is 10PQ, and that's your answer here. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next part of multiplication, and this is where we see brackets being introduced to all of our questions. Okay. So what we have here is brackets in algebra always tells us to multiply. Okay. Expand basically means, when you see that in a question, it means to remove brackets. And simplify is like what we were doing in the last section, whereas when we're adding and subtracting like terms. So we're just looking out for the different types of language here. Okay, so brackets means to multiply. So you're going to see questions where we have 3 multiplied by x plus 2, and we have to multiply every term on the outside by every term on the inside. So 3 times x gives 3x, and 3 times 2 gives us 6. Now remember, we can only add and subtract like terms. So when I look at this question here, okay, these are not like terms. We have an x term and a constant, which means they can't be added or subtracted. So this here is our answer. Okay. So starting off, we have 3 multiplied by b minus 3. So 3 times b is 3b, and 3 times minus 3, a plus by a minus is minus, and 3 by 3 is 9. Okay, so again, these are different terms, so we can't add them together. So we've 3b minus 9 is our answer here. Next question, same idea, we just have an extra part added on. So we're going to do our multiplication and then worry about the simplifying at the end. So we've 3 by x is 3x, 3 by 2 is 6, 4 by x is 4x, and 4 by 1 is 4. Okay, so 3x and 4x are like terms, and 6 and 4 are like terms because they're both constants. 3x plus 4x is 7x. We're just thinking of our number line again here. And 6 plus 4 gives us 10. Different terms, so we can't add them together. So here we have our 2 by a and 2 by minus 4, minus 5 by a, and minus 5 by minus 1. So 2 by a is 2a. 2 by minus 4 plus by minus is minus, and 2 by 4 is 8. Minus 5 by a is minus 5a, and minus 5 by minus 1, minus by minus is plus, and 5 by 1 is 5. So here we have our a terms and our constants. So 2a minus 5a. So if we're on 2a and we minus 5a, we end up on minus 3a. Again, you can use your calculator there if it's needed. And minus 8 plus 5. So if you're on minus 8 and you add 5, you're on minus 3. And because they're different terms, we can't add them any further. When we're adding and subtracting these numbers, I always think of money, or I always tell the lads to think of money. Because if you were owing someone €8, okay, and you gave them back €5, you would now only owe them €3.